Hi everyone, welcome back to another anatomy video. In today's episode, we're going to be looking at the respiratory system. So please like and subscribe for more videos in the future. And now we're going to get into the first diagram. So over here, we can see a nice laminate of the lungs, and then it branches off into the bronchioles and the alveoli, taking a deeper look within the lungs. So first, we're going to zoom in and we're just going to take a look at the left versus right lung. So this over here is going to be your left lung, and that is an L signifying left. The first portion is going to be your different lobes. So over here, this is your superior lobe, and then down over here is your inferior lobe. You'll also have a superior lobe on the right side, and down over here, this tiny little segment is your inferior lobe. On the right lung, you do have an added lobe. It's going to be in the middle of the superior and inferior lobe, and it is known as your middle lobe. Then on the left side, again, we have this line that is separating the superior and inferior lobes. This line is called your oblique fissure over here. You also have an oblique fissure on the right side. So this line that is separating the middle and inferior lobe, that is known as your oblique fissure as well. On the right side, you do have an added fissure. It's going to be separating the superior versus middle lobe. So it's right over here, that line. And this fissure is called the horizontal fissure. Right over there. Now, a good way to differentiate the right versus left sides of the lungs is that the left lung is always going to have this C-shaped curve over there, and that is known as your cardiac notch. It's basically just this space where the heart is able to sit, and it makes sure that the heart and the lungs aren't too squished next to each other. So next we have the diaphragm. So this surface over here at the bottom, that is known as your diaphragm. You also have your diaphragmatic surface. The diaphragmatic surface is just the side that is kind of like directly touching the lungs. So diaphragmatic surface right over here. And then you also have your apex versus your base of the lung. So the pointy region over here, that is known as the apex of the lung, while the bottom is known as the base. So just this whole portion over here, that is going to be your base. All right, so now we're going to go over your trachea and your bronchi. So this region over here, that is your trachea. And this supplies oxygen and air to your lungs. If you have ever heard of, like needing to insert the trachea pipe into this airway structure in all of those different like medical shows and everything like that. That is the structure that they're talking about. Then you have your primary bronchi. So the first branching off region, that is going to be the primary bronchi. You also have your secondary bronchi, which is going to be the next branching off. So it's like this region over here. And then tertiary bronchi, you're going to branch off again. So after your tertiary bronchi, that is then going to turn into your bronchioles. So you'll see that there is like this blue cartilage over here where there is no more cartilage that then becomes your bronchiole. So around this region over here where they show the projection off of the lung, that is going to be the bronchioles. You have your terminal bronchioles first. So your terminal bronchiole would be around this region over here. Terminal bronchioles. Afterwards, you have the respiratory bronchioles. So the respiratory bronchioles are going to be very important for transporting that air to the alveoli. So like this projection over here and then this projection over there, those would both be considered respiratory bronchioles. After that, we then have the alveolar duct. So the alveolar duct, if you see over here, each one of these is an alveolar bundle. And the pipes that are connected to the bundles, so like over here is another one. Those pipes are known as your alveolar ducts. You might have also heard of the term alveolar sac. Alveolar sac just refers to the inside of the alveolar bundle where the oxygen is. So that would be considered your alveolar sac, where it shows a cross section of the inside of an alveolar bundle. And then each one of these circles, or I like to think of them as like a single grape in a whole grape cluster. So the single grape would be the alveoli, like so. All right. So that is everything for kind of just like this lung diagram. Over here, we can see the blood gas barrier, and this is kind of just like where the oxygen is going in exchange with the blood, aka meaning that the blood is getting oxygenized, and O2 is connected to the hemoglobin that is connected to your red blood cells, and it's transporting oxygen around your body via your blood system. All right, so here is another look, kind of like closer look at everything. Again, it goes terminal bronchioles, respiratory bronchioles, alveolar duct, alveolar bundle. Inside is the alveolar sac, and then each one of the circles is an alveoli. Okay, now we are going to take a look at your larynx. So the first thing to know is that all of this cartilage over here, this blue cartilage, that is going to be your thyroid cartilage. And now where the thyroid cartilage comes to a point, so this region over here, especially if you have the model in front of you, you will kind of see that it comes to a point, and that is known as your laryngoprominence, right over there. You also have your cricoid cartilage. So the cricoid cartilage is going to be this region down here in blue. It also wraps around to the posterior side. This is also your cricoid cartilage. Right over there. Then you have your tracheal cartilage. The tracheal cartilage is going to be all of these different rings, these blue rings over here. Tracheal cartilage. Another important thing to know is that at the bottom of your trachea, you have something called the carina. So you can actually see, if we zoom in over here, there is kind of like this piece of cartilage that is in almost a V shape over here. So that piece of cartilage that is right at the bottom of the trachea, that is known as the carina, and it is spelled with a C. All right, so now as we move back to your larynx over here, again, tracheal cartilage. Next, you have your epiglottis. So you can see the epiglottis over here and also over here on this back side. The epiglottis is in charge of kind of making sure that food is going to the right spot so that food is not entering your trachea and it's going down your esophagus and then into your stomach. If food does go down your trachea, then that is where you would start to like choke and cough when you are eating. So that is what that gesture is. We also have arytenoid cartilage. So the arytenoid cartilage is going to be on the posterior side, and it's over here, kind of like the big chunk where you see almost like these Hershey looking structures, and that is arytenoid cartilage. At the very top of that, you are going to see these little like horns, and they are separate. They're separate from the arytenoid cartilage. These little like dots or horns at the very top, that is known as your corniculate cartilage. Right over there. It's important to make sure that you don't mix up corniculate with the cricoid cartilage. So cricoid cartilage is going to be this region and this region over here on the back, while corniculate cartilage is the little corns or horns I like to think of at the very top over here, these two tiny little dots. All right, so that is mostly everything for the larynx. You also do have your tracheal muscle over here in yellow, this little stringy structure right back there. That is your trachealis muscle. And that one kind of like also constricts whenever you are choking. It's trying to constrict, make the trachea a little bit smaller so that it pushes food upward and out of the trachea. All right, now we're going to go to histology. So, this is what lung tissue is supposed to look like. As you can see, the lumen is already labeled. Lumen is just going to be this white space that is in between all of the other tissue and in between the alveoli. So, a single closed circle, such as this big one over here, that would be considered to be an alveoli. The circle must be closed, though. If it's not closed, it's not an alveoli. So, for instance, this region over here, that would not be an alveoli because you can see right over here it's open. It hasn't been completely closed. Now, over here, this is what the lungs of a miner looks like. Miner, as in someone who is down in the mines, so someone who works with a lot of tar. Now, you can see that their lungs definitely have a lot of toxins, a lot of buildup. There's definitely signs of tar entering their lungs, and therefore it gets harder to breathe because the lungs are just more collapsed. You can even see the tissue over here. It's more of a pale pink. It's not as healthy, it's more like stringy looking. While over here on a healthy person's lung, all of the cells just look very complete, very well put together. The nuclei within the cells is just round and very structured. Over here, it's like a little bit more collapsed and disheveled. So, all of that. This over here, this big structure, this is an arteriole. So this whole portion, including the outside light pink area, this is an arteriole again. And basically, these are structures that help to bring blood to the lungs, and the red blood cells on the inside is kind of the giveaway that it's an arteriole. If it was a bronchiole, it would look exactly the same with this light pink, thick outside area. You just wouldn't have like this dark purple inside. All right, so that is everything for this video on the respiratory system. I hope you guys found some of it interesting or informational. If you have any more questions, leave them down in the comments. If you would like some extra anatomy tutoring, then you can also comment down below and I will give you guys some resources and some one-on-one help. Overall, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Thank you for watching and have a great day. Bye.